Bruce Lee is arguably the greatest martial artist to ever live. His mastery of the fighting arts was nothing short of legendary, and whether it was his displays of speed or his almost unparalleled strength now, because he sadly passed away at a young age, many of us may not necessarily grasp the full scope of Bruce Lee's fighting prowess. But those who knew and saw him up close would easily testify that the man truly did some otherworldly stuff. I'm talking about feats of superhuman ability that are just completely unbelievable to most people. Oh boy, I can tell that one was going to be a hard one. In this video, we'll be going over a few of these feats, and hopefully you'll really get to grasp how much of a rare talent that Bruce Lee was. Speedy punches. Now, if there's one thing that Bruce Lee knew how to do better than anyone else, it was throw a punch. In fact, there's an argument to be made that the reason Bruce was so much better than most other fighters around was simply because he was too fast for most of them. By the time he would throw a strike, it would have been too late for them to mount any defense. Now, because Bruce Lee was a practitioner of his own fighting style, you would imagine there'd be a lot of competition. Many people wanted to test their skills with the champ, and that included even those who didn't practice Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do. For our first clip, we see a perfect depiction of an instance when someone tried to challenge Bruce, only for things to backfire. Back in 1976, Bruce was at a martial arts exhibition when he ran into Victor Moore. For those who may not know who Victor Moore was, he held a 10th degree black belt in karate and was also a 4-time world karate champion. By the time the video was recorded, the two men had met at Long Beach International Karate Championships that year, with Bruce being a special guest. During a speed drill, he had thrilled the crowd, performing several moves, which included and especially his famous unstoppable punch. Apparently, Moore was of the belief that Bruce was not fast enough to hit him with the punch, so in front of everyone, they decided to put this theory to the test. Bruce had set a simple challenge. He would throw a punch in Moore's direction, and all Moore had to do was block it. The two men took their places, and then the action came through. Bruce Lee literally threw that punch not once but twice, making sure that it didn't hit Moore. But even though Moore didn't get hit in the face, I think it's safe to say that he got the message loud and clear. Fighting with no eyes. One of the reasons why Bruce Lee will always live on when you consider the legends of martial arts was that he had a penchant for doing things that were thought to be utterly impossible. It's especially more impressive when you consider the fact that the man was a martial artist performing an art form that required mastery of the body's full sense organs. If you've ever been in close post-combat, you'd be able to tell that you need to be alert at all times, and the moment you slip up, you immediately hand your opponent an upper hand that they can use against you. For Bruce Lee, however, it would appear that the mastery of martial arts had become so innate that he literally didn't even need to have his eyes open to win a fight. Check out this insane scene from an exhibition he had a few years before he passed away. Here we see Bruce Lee engaging in close combat with a sparring partner, and at first, it seems as though they're both evenly matched, with Bruce and his partner going toe-to-toe for a few moments. Then, like a snake that's lurking and looking for the perfect time, Bruce picks his spot and strikes with optimal precision. Personally, I think there are two things that are impressive about this. First was the fact that Bruce had literally dispatched the guy in less than a minute. However, what was even more impressive was that Bruce was literally blindfolded for the entirety of the clip. Can you even imagine how insane it must have been to fight someone with your eyes closed? And if you thought this was everything, well, let me tell you, you've got another thing coming. Bruce's sparring partner was not content on being knocked to the ground once, so he came back again for the second round, and to make things worse, Bruce literally dispatched him in an even shorter amount of time despite the fact that the man was still wearing his blindfold. That must have been what, 5 seconds? The guy was definitely not one to be toyed with. The two men then went on sparring for a third time, and as you would imagine, the result really wasn't any different. Bruce showed impressive skill and mastery of his fighting style, and his sparring partner was just no match for his superior abilities. Taking care of your opponent is one thing, but doing so while blindfolded is completely next level. Considering the fact that Bruce was wearing an outfit that looked similar to the first clip, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he did this at the same event in 1967. With everything we know now about the man, I mean, who would put it past him? Taking it to the table. Now, if you thought that Bruce Lee was only good at using his fists, you would be very wrong. Sure, the man mostly fought with nothing but his bare knuckles and his feet, but that didn't necessarily mean that he didn't equally master how to use specialized weapons when fighting. When it came to weapons, he was especially fond of using his famous nunchucks, a traditional East Asian martial arts tool consisting of 2 sticks being connected to each other at their ends by a short metal chain or a rope. And because of its shape, the nunchucks can be incredibly difficult to master for most people. But if Bruce Lee is anything, he's definitely not a normal person. Take a look at this clip for instance, shot as part of a backstage video montage for a movie production. It shows Bruce facing off against opponents using the nunchucks, and you would probably think it was a fight scene, but no. Bruce is literally using them to play table tennis. Do you even have any idea of how insane this is? I mean, first off, table tennis is a game requiring speed, strength, and an incredible amount of hand-eye coordination. For most professionals, merely keeping up with a wide bat is already as difficult as you can imagine, but it's no problem for Bruce. Despite the fact that the nunchucks are dangerous, he wields them with so much skill, easily using them in place of the traditional table tennis bat. Bruce is so good, in fact, that he faced off against 2 players at the same time with nothing but his nunchucks, and he still managed to win. Honestly, if I hadn't seen it myself, I probably would not have believed the video was real. The fact that Bruce was able to do this while still maintaining his balance and not hitting himself with his own weapon was impressive enough, but to literally defeat 2 great players at the same time just takes things beyond the realm of possibility. Insane workout routine. It's absolutely impossible for anyone to attain the level of mastery over martial arts that Bruce Lee achieved without going through extensive and rigorous training. Bruce himself knew this and never cheated himself out of that. In fact, by the time he had become an established martial arts grandmaster, he was said to have engaged in such rigorous training sessions that most people would wonder if the guy was even human. Now, to really understand Bruce's training, it's worth exploring his fighting style. In the early parts of his career, he was trained by Ip Man in Hong Kong, and for years he had built up his mastery of the legendary Wing Chun fighting art, taking lessons from Ip Man while incorporating them into his own form of the art that he developed later. In the early 60s, still though, Bruce Lee would not be satisfied, and following a highly publicized fight with Wong Jackman, he decided that he was not happy with the outcome of the conflict. Primarily, Bruce hated the fact that his fight with Wong Jackman lasted so long. Even though, according to most sources, he eventually won, he decided that the traditional fighting styles had become too rigid and so would not work in practical fighting scenarios. As a remedy, he created Jeet Kune Do in 1967. The style of no style, as Bruce would deem it, was requiring Bruce to literally switch his training methods. He began lifting weights for strength, running more to improve endurance, and stretching properly to optimize flexibility as much as possible. And as you can imagine, he succeeded with that as well. Bruce Lee's strength training was especially intense. He practiced his kicks and punches so much while lying on punching bags and kicking pads that weighed hundreds of pounds, and even at that, he still managed to almost break them. Just check out this clip of him trying to use a kicking pad. Oh boy, I could tell that one was going to be a hard one. A lot of it was missed, I know, coming in. Good. You can see the strength that Bruce packed into that kick, which was so much that it literally forced the guy holding it to move back several paces. The same went for Bruce's punching training, and according to some reports, he used special punching bags that were heavier and more dense than most of the ones that were available. This way meant very little to Bruce, who would almost literally yank them off their hinges with the strength of his hits. With such dedication and an immense focus on building strength, it's really no wonder that Bruce ended up with a punch that was not only fast but also lethal. As well, and that's a deadly combination if I've ever seen one. All of these had helped to reinforce Bruce's Jeet Kune Do arsenal. With his new fighting style, he was finally ready to conquer the martial arts world. The one-inch punch. If there's one thing that Bruce Lee has become especially famous for, it's the one-inch punch. Basically, a style of punching that's so rare yet so effective, and even though many people have tried to replicate it, the truth is it's nearly impossible. The one-inch punch is exactly what it sounds like. Bruce Lee would stand at a very close distance to his opponent and deliver a powerful punch to their midsection. What made the punch so popular is actually the fact that it almost defies the laws of physics. Because you have to remember, if you're going to punch someone, you'll want to stand a considerable distance and let the momentum from the punch give you enough weight to knock them down. With the one-inch punch, Bruce takes a different approach, delivering a blow that's still as devastating despite the fact that it's literally an inch from the opponent. To be fair, Bruce didn't invent the one-inch punch, but the technique is only prominent today because of how much he had popularized it. To see him perform it is honestly to watch a master at his art. Interestingly, this clip was captured at the same karate exhibition where Bruce had sparred with Vic Moore, and you can see how intense the punch technique actually is. Despite the fact that he didn't have the luxury of space or momentum to really give it the right amount of power, he had still managed to knock the guy off his feet and get him to move back a few paces. It really just goes to show you the type of raw strength the man was working with. And you may be wondering what happens if Bruce actually gets enough momentum under his punch? Well, that's why he also demonstrated his 6-inch punch. While the technique might not have been as prominent as the 1-inch punch, it's still quite impressive, and to really appreciate it, you have to see this clip from the same event for a proper demonstration. Bruce invites a karate practitioner to have a crack at one of the audience members, who was wearing protective gear, as you can see. The karate guy gave it all that he had, and he only managed to make the audience member fall back a few steps. Bruce then comes in, taking his patented 6 inches punch and tries it out on the same guy, and you can see a clear difference between his effort and that of the karate guy. I mean, come on, even a visually impaired person would tell you that this was quite a stretch. Bruce didn't only knock the guy back a few steps, but he made him sit in his chair while the pad that he used to protect his chest literally flew off. What sort of superhuman strength did he have, really? There are only a few things that really depict Bruce's true strength. His 1-inch punch and, to a lesser degree, the 6 inches punch as well definitely rank in that category. To date, most people who have tried to replicate it have only scratched the surface, and truly no one could ever do it like Bruce. The 2-finger push-up is another interesting feat that adds to the lore of Bruce Lee. The push-up is generally considered one of the most difficult exercises to perform, and it's especially challenging because it literally takes something out of your entire upper body, from the core of your tummy to your shoulders and even your arms. For many of us, the act of completing a push-up can be a challenge. You have to raise your body and then push it down again in several motions. Without the right amount of strength, it may be impossible. For Bruce Lee, however, it was no more than a walk in the park. You have to remember that Bruce focused a lot on improving his strength as part of his training, and because of that, he was able to optimize his own core strength as well as that of his hands. One thing that Bruce Lee was known for was his willingness to go above and beyond what other people were prepared to do. While most of us train with push-ups using both our hands, Bruce would literally switch it up, using just 2 of his fingers. It's insane to think about. Most people today try to act like they've mastered the art of the push-up and tend to do things like lifting their body and clapping or perhaps doing push-ups on one hand. But for Bruce Lee, all of it was no more than child's play. He had upped the ante, working with only 2 fingers on his right hand and displaying an ungodly amount of strength to use those fingers to lift his body off the ground one at a time. To be fair, there have been a lot of people who have also mastered the push-up technique, but there's no argument about the fact that Bruce was really the one who had made it as popular as it is today. Always ready. A major hallmark of someone who has mastered martial arts is a willingness to show off what they know at a moment's notice. For many of us who aren't expert fighters, the general perception of people who practice martial arts is that they always have to have their gear on and can only feel comfortable fighting when they're dressed appropriately, such as the robe and the belt and whatnot. For Bruce Lee, though, there was actually no such thing as an appropriate outfit. He was always ready to scrap regardless of the situation. For instance, take this clip where he gave an interview on a midday TV show and literally had to show off some of his moves while wearing a suit. There are various kinds of strikes. It depends on where you hit and what weapon you will be using. There is the finger jab, there's the punch, there is the back fist, and then the low, of course. Then they use legs straight at the ground. I'll come up, or if I can back up a little bit, they start back from here and then come back. Alright, he kind of worked. He had no issues with stretching and showing off what he had despite the fact that he wasn't wearing the proper attire, and that's just how special Bruce Lee was. The Dragon Flag, for the final clip, we'll be looking at a workout regimen that Bruce pioneered, which remains one of the most difficult in the world. The Dragon Flag is a form of exercise that literally tests every part of your upper body, from the core of your stomach to your upper limbs and so much more. To perform it, you would need to lay down on a bench and then hold a pole or some other straight structure that has been erected at the end of the head with your hands holding the pole. It's now up to you to raise your entire body, kind of like doing a push-up but with your body being inverted. Still though, it doesn't end there. When you perform a Dragon Flag, you're also meant to hold your position with your body being elevated, and I just let Bruce show you how it's done. The Dragon Flag has to be one of the most advanced core exercises available, and as you can imagine, it's also one of the most difficult forms of workouts to engage in. It actually is named after Bruce, with the dragon part being a reference to his popular nickname and the flag part alluding to the fact that he would have to hold his body straight like a flag rested on a flagpole. Due to the level of difficulty involved, the Dragon Flag is only practiced by advanced athletes with high levels of endurance and the right mentality. It places a significant amount of work on the body's joints, but is especially beneficial for your core because it allows you to build a considerable amount of core strength. In many ways, it was the perfect training regimen for Bruce. Core training has always been a major part of his requirements as a master of Jeet Kune Do, and exercises like these would have helped to improve his flexibility at the same time. The fact that the Dragon Flag is one of those exercises that most other people would immediately run away from means that Bruce Lee must have been especially excited about it. Like the many other difficult exercises he completed, he did it as though it were nothing. Bruce Lee's mastery of martial arts was definitely something to behold. The man was so good that it was almost criminal for him to do some of the things that he did. To be honest, if many of us were told some of the craziest stunts and moves that he pulled, it would be hard to believe. But fortunately, we have the footage that attests to just how special a talent Bruce was. But what do you think, though? Would you have stood a chance against Bruce Lee? Can you pull off some of the moves that he was able to do? Be sure to let me know all about it in the comments down below. You should also subscribe to the channel so that you never miss another video like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.